Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Greg Leipsic. I'm with Junior Achievement in Manitoba, and welcome to JA Manitoba's first of three World of Choices Career Expos presented by RBC. We want to, of course, thank RBC as our sponsor and CNA as well for their support. The goal of this event is simple. We want to inspire you to learn all that you can about different career paths and gain insight, knowledge, and resources necessary to pursue your dreams after high school. We're really excited about our amazing speakers, and we know this is a great opportunity for all of you to learn about some fascinating careers. After each speaker presents, you'll be given the opportunity to ask questions in the chat box. And at the end of your session, your teacher will have a digital survey for you to fill out, and we thank you for your response. Lastly, we want to acknowledge we are on treaty territory and that we are all treaty people, and JA Manitoba acknowledges the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. Okay, let's begin. First off, we're going to watch a quick video from our sponsor, the RBC Foundation. Not sure if everybody could hear that or not. Love technology sometimes. Let's get started. Our first speaker is Ryan Lussier. Ryan's the Regional Manager, RBC Financial Planning, Investment and Retirement Planners. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you, Greg. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everyone. And first off, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Junior Achievement for not only allowing me to speak in front of all of you, but really giving me a leg up when I was in high school. So when I was in high school, I was part of the Junior Achievement company program where they taught you to run a business. They taught me lots about sales. I was fortunate enough to be the president of 3 companies in high school and love sales as well. And I really think this is such a huge help to me on getting me into the world of finance in my career in business. And so they just had such a tremendous impact on me. So I want to say thank you to Junior Achievement. Thank you for making a difference in my life. And if you have not considered joining the company program, if you have it available for you, I encourage you to do so. It was such a great experience and it really helped me out. So now what do I do today? What is my current role? So as Greg mentioned, I'm the Regional Manager for Financial Planners, Investment and Retirement Planning at RBC. And so what we do is we help protect the wealth of a generation of Canadians. We protect their wealth when they have things that we call life events going on in their life. And we come in and help them through these transitions and provide consulting work on their retirement planning, on how to invest their money, and how to grow their wealth and protect it. So when I was in high school and when I was growing up, I thought putting money somewhere and making more of it was such a cool concept. You know, the thought that you could just put it somewhere in the right company or the right investment and you would make more of it, I thought that was awesome. So I wanted to be a part of it, and I got my start with RBC at the Advice Center. So that was a call center. I worked at customer service, and I worked the night shift at customer service while I went to school, university during the day. So you're right in thinking I did not have a life. No, I did work incredibly hard and studied really hard, but it led to some really wonderful things. I got to transfer to our investment division. So I was over the phone investment specialist for a couple of years. And then when I was 22, I completed my financial planning designation and was transferred out to the branch network to become an accredited financial planner. I did that for about 10 years, loved doing it because it allowed me to help Canadians through these really important times in their life. And it got me to be able to do what I love, which is helping people build their wealth and allowed me to be an investment nerd, which I absolutely loved being, an investment geek. I then went on to work for Global Asset Management, so RBC's Global Asset Management. That's the division that makes the mutual funds that RBC sells to our clients. And so through Global Asset Management, I was able to travel all around Canada. I got to see this beautiful country. I spent lots of time on the road giving economic updates and doing presentations to hundreds and hundreds of clients in auditoriums all around Canada. And it was really a fun job. I probably would have stayed there for much longer in my career, but we wanted to start a family, and being on the road, it was a little bit harder to imagine. And so I took on the job that I have today, which is the Regional Manager of Financial Planning, and we lead a team of investment specialists for RBC. I've been doing this for about 7 years now, and we've managed to grow the team. And my passion has been helping others learn financial planning and learn to be good protectors of Canadians' wealth. And so that's what we do day in and day out. I have a team of 16 advisors and 2 associates, and they're tremendous people, and RBC has been a tremendous organization, allowing me to grow into so many different roles and experience so many different things. I've been with RBC for 21 years now, and I probably will stay the blue and gold until I retire. A couple of tips for you folks, if you're thinking of getting into the world of finances, if you are like me, thinking that if I can put some money somewhere and make more of it, this is a good thing. I would suggest, join that JA company program, learn about business, learn about finance, make sure you consider taking your financial planning accreditation. If you're going to university, you can do your financial planning accreditation while you're in university as well. Alongside that, it'll give you a leg up. We have a huge shortage of financial planners in the industry right now. Many people are not accredited, and it's a really important designation, whether it's the PFP, the QAFP, or the CFP. These are all designations that are in very high demand in this industry. So if you do take one of those designations while you're in university, alongside a commerce degree or anything like that, it will really help you when you go out into the workforce. You can geek out in investments lots of different ways. There's great websites like Investopedia. You can go to RBC Global Asset Management. You can download the podcast from Dave Richardson. There's just a ton of ways to be really involved in the investment industry. And with that, I think that's my 5 minutes. So I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to check out the chat. And if you hear my little daughter running around in the background, that is the joys of leaving the world of traveling in order to start a family.
Thanks, Ryan. Well,
Thanks, everyone.
Couple questions that we've already got. Somebody asks, and it's short and sweet, TFSA or RSP, where do I put my money this summer for my lawn care job?
Oh, that's a great question. I would start with that TFSA, and I'll tell you why. You're probably going to be in higher earning years later on in life, and you'll need that RSP room when your income is bigger. So great idea to start a job early, start filing taxes. That's going to make RSP room for you. And that RSP room is going to come in handy when you're a really big income earning financial planner in the industry. So keep it in your back pocket for later and put it in the TFSA for today. Great question.
Okay. Another question is, what is the most rewarding part of your job? I'm guessing making people rich must be awesome.
That is absolutely a wonderful part of the job. I can remember lots of stories where meeting clients many years after I've had an impact on their finances, outside of the grocery store or elsewhere, and just having those conversations around how big of an impact it was and what it meant for their family and how important it was for them, taking them through that. That's such a rewarding thing. For me now, as a manager, the most rewarding part of my job is helping my team accomplish what they don't think is accomplishable. So I view as a manager, I'm kind of like the Sherpa. I've climbed the mountain. I know how to climb it. My job is to get my team to the top. And so that's rewarding, is when I can see the team on the top and I can be a part of helping guide them on that journey.
Okay. Another question is, do I have to go into business school in university to be an investment advisor?
You don't. It's a great question. So you don't have to go to business school. What you're looking for to be a financial planner in the industry is either a personal financial planning designation, it's called a PFP, or a QAFP. Now, the industry has moved to ask for a designation under the CFP, so you have to have a 4-year diploma designation in order to qualify for the CFP, but the PFP still does not require it. So some people, if they finish high school and they go right into the world of banking as a teller or as a banking advisor, they can get their designation for financial planning without having to go back through commerce. But those rules might change. That's the rules today, but they may change because the CFP has already made that change where you need a 4-year designation. But the short answer is, as of today, no, you could go right into financial planning as long as you have the PFP accreditation.
Okay. Another person asks, can you tell us about working at the RBC call center? That's their question.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the RBC call center, and I would imagine any call center that has, a professional background in it, is like seeing, thousands of case studies for the real world in a very short amount of time. So I always really value people that have been in the call center simply because you transact or advise so many clients. in the branch network, our advisors are busy if they're seeing 3 people a day. In the advice center, you're probably seeing, depending on how long those calls go, you could be seeing 3 to 6 people an hour, right? And so the amount of exposure you get to client scenarios in the advice center is great. Here in Winnipeg, we have we're fortunate that we have the RBC Advice Center in Winnipeg that you can go, work at. And I hire lots of people who have advice center experience, lots of advice center alumni. So it's a great place.
Okay, more questions coming into the chat. What is the skill you think is important when leading a group of people, and what is the most challenging part of your job?
Oh, who's making all these questions? These are unbelievable. You've got a smart group of folks on the line here. My gosh. So what is it? What is the most important skill in leadership? That is a really good question. I would say is, caring deeply about your people. You really can't make an impact on anyone unless you care and you show that you care and you know how to connect with those individuals and you take an interest in that person. I was always taught in leadership, if you want to know what someone really feels about you, look how you're introduced to their significant other, and you'll see exactly what type of leader you are. If that person walks up to you and says, "Hey, nice to meet you, how you doing?" or gives you the cold shoulder, you know exactly where you stand in leadership. So I think that was a life lesson that resonated with me. So you can't be a great leader without great care and great compassion for the people that you lead. So I'd start there. The second thing around what is the hardest part of your job, I would say the hardest part is just speaking truth in honesty that people need to hear to help them grow, but sometimes it's really hard. And so I would encourage anyone on the line, if they're looking at leadership, don't be afraid to speak in love, but make sure you tell the people you lead the important things. You can't just skip over and gloss over the hard conversations, because it's the hard conversations that make the team better.
Terrific. Okay, 2 more questions, 2-parter. How long did university take for you? And when you were there, how did you create a work-life-school balance?
There was no work-life-school balance. It was work and school. No other part of life. So I don't recommend doing that. It was 4 years. But yeah, I think nowadays, reflecting back on it, it definitely helps getting through everything as quickly as possible. But there's other ways you can do it without having to work full time and without having to go to school full time at the same time. Those are tough ways. I wouldn't recommend that, but yeah, you definitely work those summer jobs and focus on schooling first.
Okay, what do you think about NFTs?
Oh, the digital world. It's such a unique time. I don't really that are revolving around NFTs. So I'm a wait and see kind of guy. I'm going to wait and see how this all plays out. I'm not sure if I would buy things without any physical presence, personal. No NFTs in my portfolio, but I'm interested to watch what happens. The people making it are quite brilliant, and there must be some people who want this. So we'll see where it goes.
Okay. Why did you decide to get into this career, and what's your career long-term goal?
So I think it goes back to that concept of, making money from putting it where putting it in the right spot. I thought that was fascinating. I come from a very humble family. We were not wealthy growing up at all. And so I wanted to learn everything about finance to make sure that I could provide for my family, and if I could help Canadians not have to, struggle as hard as my family did and myself, then I thought that would be a noble career. And so that's why I joined RBC, and that's why I've stayed at RBC for the last 21 years.
Perfect. What type of career paths and opportunities are there at RBC? And that I know there's a lot of them, so I don't know if you want to describe all of them or if there's a couple you want to focus on in particular that you find interesting, perhaps.
Sure. Maybe I'll answer it in a different way. And this would be advice that if I was in your shoes, it would be advice I would want to receive. I'll put it this way. The name on the front of your jersey is just as important as the name in the back nowadays. And so the organization you choose to entrust your career to is incredibly important. So as you go out into the world and look at all the different types of choices there are, just make sure the name on that front of the jersey is one that matches up and aligns with your values, with your belief system, with what you care about, with what inspires you, with what gets you up out of bed in the morning. And if you do that correctly, you'll find that the organization probably has multiple different paths, like RBC does. We are truly global. You can go around the world, but the most important part is, does that name on the front of the jersey represent you? And are you proud to be a part of that team? That's important.
Terrific answer. All right, last question for you, more investment advice. What's one Manitoba company that I can invest in that you recommend?
Oh, wow. One Manitoba company. Well, probably the most, and I'm not sure if it's public yet, but Skip the Dishes was Manitoba born and bred, right? So one of our most famous tech companies, Skip. So I'd keep my eye on Skip the Dishes.
Okay. I think everybody's familiar with Skip the Dishes. That's terrific. Thanks so much, Ryan. We really appreciate it. And have a good afternoon. And we're going to move on to our next speaker, who's Jason Kopytko. Jason is the Regional Marketing Manager for Tim Hortons for Manitoba and Saskatchewan and Northwest Ontario. Do I have that right, Jason?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, about a third of Canada. So
perfect. You're on.
Perfect. Thanks, Greg. Well, I'm going to start off sort of with high school, and I'm going to start off by showing almost like a show and tell and show you guys something. So hopefully you can see this okay. But this is a picture of Buzz Aldrin, who was the second man on the moon with Neil Armstrong. And it's an autographed picture that he signed for me. And I'll tell you how I got that, because it kind of relates to my advice to you at the end of the story. But originally, when I was in grade 9, I wanted to be an astronaut. And then through high school and stuff, I was still kind of not really sure what I wanted to do. I thought about teaching, maybe getting into law, and attended University of Manitoba and started taking history and anthropology courses, and was still kind of lost in sort of what direction I wanted to get into. And a friend of mine suggested that I take a Myers-Briggs test, which really identifies sort of your personality, your types and skills, and your preferences, and kind of really recognizes and kind of gives you a path of sort of what careers sort of best match your personality. And for me, out of it, it came that, a career in advertising, public relations, or radio would be a good fit for who I was or who I am. And this led me to then going, after graduating from University of Manitoba, going to River College and taking their creative communications program, which was a 2-year program. And in fact, another speaker that will be on after me, her and I attended the same course together. But after graduating, I focused on public relations, and I got, started working in a career in sort of communications and marketing, and starting off with the Red River Exhibition Association, Manitoba Public Insurance, Investors Group Financial Services. And again, it was kind of in various communications and marketing roles that I had that. But for the last 14 years, I've been the regional marketing manager for Tim Hortons. And in my role, what I do is sort of act as a key liaison between restaurant owners and the company, and work closely with our head office marketing team, as well as our field operations team and our corporate team overall in the field. And sort of what my job sort of entails is sort of a number of different things. It's really sort of leveraging our marketing budgets to making sure we get the best return of investment on our community involvement, and that sort of matches up with our Tim Hortons business and marketing objectives and strategies, and sort of be that key source of information for marketing support for our restaurant owners in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Northwest and Northern Ontario, executing a number of different programs that I'm sure that everyone sees in the community, whether it's Camp Day or Smile Cookie or Timbits Hockey or Timbits Soccer, and communicate and negotiate, again, with a lot of our key partners. So whether it's here in Manitoba, working hand in hand with the Winnipeg Jets or the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, a lot of our junior hockey teams are quite involved with, obviously, with our founder, Tim Horton. Maybe people don't know, but Tim Horton actually was a real person and was a professional hockey player for a number of years. And really help out with lots too with our product launches that we do when we launch in our restaurants, whether it's a new iced tea quencher or a new breakfast sandwich we have with that, and kind of work again with restaurants that are being open to help again sort of drive sales and traffic to it. The one thing I love about my job is that every day is a different day. So it's not the same day. It could be something of an emergency that could pop up, or it's dealing with people in the community overall. And I think that's the part that I've really enjoyed with this job, is just the opportunity to meet different people, not just here in Manitoba, but pretty much across the country, and just see the real passion of how people feel about Tim Hortons as a brand and the involvement in the community with it. And so for me, I take a lot of pride in working for the company. And for those who follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see I tend to post quite a bit of stuff about our brand and what we do with it. But with me, again, the one thing I love about this job is again, opportunity to sort of work closely with restaurant owners and representing the brand in the community. But having a home office too has sort of been one of the nice parts about it too, and just able to have that perfect work-life balance. So going into my advice to you, and this relates to sort of the Buzz Aldrin story with it. So when I was in grade 9, as I said, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I found out that Buzz Aldrin was actually a professor at the University of North Dakota. At the time at my school, I found a photo of him and was able to write him a letter at University of North Dakota, and just to ask him, like, how did you become an astronaut? What did you take in university and college to become it? And like, what would you recommend for me to do? And within 2 weeks, I got a letter back from him, and basically, thanking me for the letter, and told me that, I need to look at getting going to university and taking either a degree in science or engineering with it. And he sent me this personalized photo, and actually I've kept the photo and I've kept the letter with it. But my advice to everyone who's listening in is, depending what you've got an interest in, talk to people in the industry. That's the one thing I always found when I was thinking about either going into public relations or advertising or getting a career in marketing or even in radio, was that people that are currently in those positions will take the time to talk to you about how they sort of got into that role, and provide sort of the best career advice for you and what you should take and what you should do with it. And so that's what I've always done, is I sort of got into this career, was just sort of talk to a lot of people who were into marketing and communications, and sort of how they got into the role, and what courses they should take, and offered sort of suggestions and advice along the way. So, with this too, again, alluding to almost what Ryan had said earlier too, like, find that job career that's going to sort of align with your values overall. Like much like Ryan too, it's great to find a company that sort of, is committed to giving back to the community. And that's sort of how I was always brought up as a kid, was always to support your community and volunteer and get involved. So I take a lot of pride in doing that. And when you find something that that you love what you do and you're passionate about it, it's really not working in the day. It's actually a really fun thing to do. So I think that's about it for 5 minutes. I could keep going. So
For sure. We've already got a pile of questions coming in, so I'll fire a couple at you. What's the best thing about your job, and what's the most challenging part of your job?
Best part of my job is I just love the interaction with people. I think just not only about our restaurant owners, but just people in the community, especially with With recently what's going on with Ukraine, we've been reaching out to a lot of different Ukrainian groups and sort of providing support for them as they're bringing refugees into Canada and sort of supporting them. The challenging part of the day, I think, is, it's like I think everybody else with its budgets, doing budgets for the most part. So I think everyone can relate to that. And I think, Greg, you could probably relate to that too, that, budgets, I mean, it's unfortunate, it's part of the job you have to do, but that's the one you just got to push your way through it. So.
I agree 100%. What tools do you use to support your marketing campaigns?
We use a number of different tools. So we either look at a lot of on the advertising side, whether it be going into a little bit of radio, but a lot of television, a lot heavily on digital itself, leveraging a lot of our social media channels to help create awareness, but then also reaching out to a lot of our community partners as an avenue to use to help promote, let's say, a specific product out there itself.
Okay. How has Skip, DoorDash, etc. affected or helped Tim Hortons?
It's helped overall with it. I mean, obviously, with the last 2 years with COVID, a lot of people have sort of been hesitant in leaving their homes itself with it. So Skip and DoorDash and those companies have really helped us out in reaching out to our guests and providing them that, their daily fix of Tim Hortons coffee or their favorite apple fritter along the way with it too. So it's actually leveraged our business quite a bit in a very positive way, and even just using our own Tim Hortons app, which we, had to quickly adjust to the line and getting our app up to date. And at one point last year, we were the second most downloaded app in Canada compared to the Weather Network. So.
Wow. Okay. Multiple questions about Tim Biebs. Did they boost Tim Hortons sales? What's your professional opinion of them? And who's the next Canadian celebrity to get their own Timbits?
Tim Biebs did definitely. So Justin Bieber's had a long relationship with Tim Hortons. He's always been a bit of a fan. He's a very traditionalist when it comes to, having his coffee and his Timbits with it. And it's funny, the whole Justin Bieber program has been in the works for almost over a year itself with it. And he was definitely interested in coming on board and doing some type of Tim Hortons promotion with it. So when we did launch it out back in the fall or late November and stuff, we did see definitely a boost in sales and traffic to our restaurants with it. When you have someone that has millions and millions and millions of followers, it definitely helps create awareness about the brand itself with it. Someone had shared with me in downtown Toronto, a colleague of mine that was involved, we had taken over sort of the downtown outdoor billboard area and videotaped it and sent it to Justin's management team. Within 15 minutes, it was posted on his Twitter account. So just the exposure overall has been huge. The next celebrity to come on board, I really would love to see Michael Bublé, because I'm not sure if anyone's seen, but Michael Bublé did a lot of his own little videos about the Tim Biebs and stuff, and sort of wanting his own little product line. So we'll see what happens down the road. That's
great. Why did you decide to get into this career, and how do I get into marketing with Tim Hortons?
You know what, I sort of fell into this career. Like I said, I got into sort of public relations, and one of my early jobs, I had a mentor, a guy named Mitch Selnowski, that did marketing for the River Rex, and taught me a lot about marketing and promotions. And I realized that was sort of the avenue I wanted to go. And that's sort of what I kind of got into when I was with Manitoba Public Insurance and Investors Group. Found out that for me, it fit my personality overall and what I wanted to do. And with it, to get a job in marketing with Tim Hortons, you can definitely, the first thing is obviously look at getting a marketing degree of some sort. And then we have many positions open within Tim Hortons itself, but also within RBI. So Tim Hortons is owned by a company called Restaurant Brands International. And so we have sister corporations like Popeye's Chicken, as well as Burger King, and just as recently, Firehouse Subs. So with Tim Hortons too as well, we've got locations not only in Canada, the US, but also within Mexico, India, Spain, the UK, and many other places.
Awesome. How long did university take for you?
University took me 4 years, and then 2 years at River College.
Okay. Last question, and this seems really important. I love the sour cream donut. Can you please look into bringing back the chocolate sour cream donut?
I'll make a note of that when my team call tomorrow to see about doing that.
I love the sour cream, so I'm quite content with that one. Okay, that's it. We're out of time. Thanks for everything, Jason. That was terrific.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Okay. Our next speaker is Stephanie Kleysen. Stephanie is a physiotherapist with Up and Running Physiotherapy and Kenaston Common Physiotherapy. Welcome to you, Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good afternoon. So I'm a physiotherapist, and I'll start by kind of talking about how I got there, and then a little bit about what it means to be a physio. So I started at the University of Winnipeg, and I went there thinking that I was going to be a dietitian. I also went there to play basketball at the same time. So trying to find my way as a student athlete was a challenge, but I got there. Anyways, as I kind of went on this course, I had to take some sciences and some kinesiology courses. And I don't know, it took about a year or two that I was going, I don't know if this is what I want to do. I think I like chips a little bit too much to be a dietitian. And I always wanted to practice what I preached, right? So I kept the door open. I kept taking some classes. I wasn't sure still what I wanted to do, but I knew, again, I liked the science background, kinesiology realm. And you know what, that's an important point, I think, for you guys to understand, not knowing exactly what you want to do when you go in. And I think, like Jason, you touched on that, and I think that's great. There's a lot of pressure for people to know what they want to do right away. But in reality, you guys are 17, 18 years old going into some kind of post-secondary if you wanted to do that. But just take the time to really think about what you want to do and take different opportunities and go that route. Anyway, so as I continued on in my undergrad, I thought about being a doctor for a moment. Then I thought about physician's assistant. And then I got into this class. It was called Prevention and Care. And basically what this class was, you learned about like a ton of injuries. And I couldn't get enough of it. It was probably the only 8 a.m. class that I was so gung-ho about showing up for. And that means a lot. So, and typically this class was meant for like athletic therapists. And it kind of falls within the same realm as a physiotherapist. And I decided to push that thought away, mostly because my mom was a physiotherapist. And I had this thought in my head that I didn't want to copy her career. I wanted to find my own path. So I kind of ignored it. Anyways, by the end of the semester, I was just kind of thinking to myself, what am I doing here? I love this class. Like, it's super fun treating injuries, learning about it. I like watching those gory videos. Like, it was just a really interesting thing to me, especially working with athletes. So I decided that, okay, you know what, let's just listen to this and let's try working with some physios. So I started shadowing a couple in different private clinics. And then we also, like, I had the opportunity to volunteer in a couple different places. And so then I refocused what I wanted to do, and I started heading within that direction. So to be a physio, you need an undergrad degree. And for Manitoba, you need a 3-year undergrad. So that's what I was completing. I ended up finishing with it was a 4-year degree, but in kinesiology with a focus on science. And I wanted to apply. And when I did, I unfortunately didn't get in my first time, and that's okay. There's lots of really competitive programs. So don't be discouraged if this is something that happens to you, right? Whatever career path you go into, if you really want it, right, it's worth that time. So I had to wait a year in between before I could apply again. And with that year, I actually had an opportunity to go overseas and play professional basketball. And in the end, it was one of those things that just kind of was meant to be. So as disappointed as I was that I didn't get in on my first try, this wonderful opportunity came my way, and things kind of happen for a reason, right? So I went to Germany, I played for a year, and that was a really wonderful opportunity. I came back, I applied to a master's program for physiotherapy, and I actually ended up getting into a program through the University of Alberta. And I was really excited about it because they have a satellite program in Calgary. So I was able to move to Calgary, which was super close to the mountains, which was way different than the prairies, right, than what we have here. So that was an amazing 2 years. I can definitely relate to you guys in terms of like virtual learning though. So we had midway through that program, that's when the pandemic had hit. So trying to navigate as a student and learning these hands-on skills through a computer screen was such an interesting experience. Like trying to learn how to treat somebody's neck with a pillow on my lap in front of a computer screen was probably the weirdest thing I've ever done. But fortunately for me, throughout that program, we have placements. So we get to go to programs or to clinics and actually work with patients, and you have a mentor that helps you. So I had incredible mentors. I was very, very lucky. And that's another really important thing. Always have someone that you can kind of talk to or ahead of you. And again, that was mentioned with Jason as well. Just always talking to somebody who's had experience in the career that you're pursuing, someone you can always ask questions to. And it's something that you should have throughout your whole life, I think. Like I can't see myself ever going, even 20, 30 years from now, I would always like to have a mentor, someone to look up to, ask questions, all that stuff. Anyways, graduated with my physio license, and I am now working in 2 private clinics. So what that means is physios have tons of different places that they can go work. For me, I work at two clinics where people will come into and they'll ask to be treated for a variety of injuries. So I work with people of all different ages. So it can be a baby coming through the door or someone who's 80, 90 years old, working with a variety of conditions. So for example, I've had patients come in who have been bitten by a horse. They've had crazy injuries that way. And our job is to help restore their range of motion, help them use their hands again. Another example is I've had another patient who had their toe amputated and they loved running. So our job was to help him get back to the thing that he loved doing. So we had to change how we ran again. We had to tell him that it's okay to kind of put pressure through that sore foot, all that stuff. So a big part of my job is educating patients, showing them exercises that will help them get better. And then anything kind of hands-on technique wise that we've learned in school and apply it to our patients. So that's kind of what I do. And yeah, and what's wonderful about this is that I have the option to alter what I do. So although I'm in a clinic setting right now, I have the opportunity to go into a hospital if I wanted to later on down the road, or I could work with a sports team. But one thing that I would encourage everybody moving forward, wherever you guys end up finding your passion with, always have like an outer space goal. So someone told me that when I was young, like when I was about 13, 14 years old. And for me as a physio, mine is I would love to get to the Olympics, to be a physio for one of the athletes, one of the sports teams. For basketball would be really cool. That's my sport, right? But always kind of have that outer space goal and chase after it. And yeah, that's what I would have to say about my career so far.
That's terrific. Thanks. Okay, we got a bunch of questions here. Let me start with the one that you just touched on. Which toe was amputated, and how would a different toe affect the gait?
It was his second toe, so it would be a different story if it was his big toe. That would like be a huge issue. But his second toe was amputated. So typically what happens is everybody puts pressure through all 5 of our toes, right? But because he had his second toe right here taken off, he avoided it. So we walked on the edge of his foot. And because he did that, he compensated with a bunch of other different muscles and joints. And so we had lots of aches and pains with that. So we had to really, really break it down and really teach him how to run again.
Okay. It's a question I didn't think we'd hear today, toe amputation. How long did university take, and how many hours do you usually work in a day?
So for me, it took me 5 years to get my 4-year undergrad. And then I took another 2.5 years for my master's.
Okay. And how many hours do you usually work in a day?
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, it varies, but anywhere between 8 and 12 hours.
Okay. How many clients do you get in a day, in a typical day, I guess? And what's the best thing about your job?
Typical day would probably be anywhere between 8 and 12 patients. Unless it's both jobs, then it's usually around that 16, 17 mark. And then, sorry, what was the second part of that?
No, I've forgotten it. I got so many questions here. Most
Sorry.
challenging part of your job?
Most challenging?
Yeah.
It's encouraging the patients that are frustrated with their pain. So sometimes things can seem so hopeless and it's hard to not be your normal self, and to really encourage that person that there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's just, we have to find that path to get there, I'd say is probably the most challenging.
Okay. Here, you can pump your own tires a bit. What was your highest scoring game in overseas basketball?
Oh, geez. I have no idea. I want to guess somewhere around 30 points. I don't really know though.
Okay. How do you stay informed about new techniques and technology?
So as a physio, we have a college that kind of governs our body, or kind of the physiotherapist. So they encourage and require that you continue learning every year. And it is so important that you do that, because there is new research coming out all the time, like every second of every day. Yeah. So keeping yourself informed is super important. And so in your master's, they really help you with this, but you have to be really good at researching credible sources. And speaking with colleagues is a really good way. And I take courses. So for me, I've taken a few courses since I've graduated. Every year, I kind of, whatever I feel like, oh, I would love to learn more about this area, I take a course in it.
Okay. What high school classes, if any, did you take to help become a physiotherapist?
So you don't really need, the only thing I'd say that you need to take, and I might be wrong, but is pre-cal, but like science wise, like it's not something you don't need to take like all three. It's I didn't take physics in high school, but there is a biomechanics course you have to take in university, and physics would definitely help. I did not have that background, so it was a little bit of it was a big step for me, sorry, but you can just take the general courses, really. Like there's nothing specific, I don't think.
Okay. Would you ever want to own your own clinic one day?
I've thought about it. I'm not sure yet. It's a lot of work, and I love going to my family cottage in the summer. And I know as an owner, you need to sacrifice a lot of your time. It's something that's in the back of my brain for sure, because it would be really cool to lead a clinic and own one.
Okay. Is physics, and I presume they mean in high school, is physics not a prerequisite to get into the schooling that you need to be a physiotherapist?
No, at least when I graduated, it was not. No.
Okay. How do you work with people who don't want to work very hard or have a low tolerance for pain?
Good question. This is a lot of my job. So you kind of trick people. So you find what they like, okay, and you really go off of that. So I would never give, let's use a very basic example. I would never give a soccer player, I would never give them like a jumping drill, because most of theirs is kind of running or side to side stuff, more agility. And if it was something they don't enjoy doing that, they're not going to do it, right? So it's important you kind of cater to what they like and what they're going after in terms of goals.
Perfect. Okay, that's it. We're out of time. Thanks so much, Stephanie, for all of your answering all those questions. That was great. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no worries. My pleasure.
Have a good afternoon. Our next speaker is Clare MacKay. Clare is the Vice President, Strategic Initiatives and Executive Director at the Forks Foundation, and it's also her birthday today, so happy birthday, Clare.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Clare MacKay, and I am the VP of Strategic Initiatives and Executive Director of the Forks Foundation for the Forks North Portage Partnership. And I was just reviewing what I was asked to talk to you about and what did I want to do in high school, and am I doing it now? Short answer, no, not at all. In high school, I wanted to be a lawyer. And it really was the only thing that I had even considered for the longest time. So every indication as I started university, I have a degree in criminology, which is something that I don't particularly use at all in my day-to-day anymore. But I needed 2 years of an arts degree before I could apply to law school. And so I chose criminology as my major. And then when I went to write the LSAT, which I thought would just be a breeze, I'm not really good at it. And I wrote it twice. I was no better the second time than I was the first time. And then I honestly didn't know what to do with myself. I really had only ever thought of that. My teachers in high school had suggested that I might want to become an actuary because I really loved computer science and I loved math. And I was good at them. I loved calculus. I loved all those kinds of things, but I also equally loved English and writing. And so that comes into play when I was trying to figure out what to do with my life after I didn't get into law school twice. I started working, I worked retail jobs. I worked at Earl's for 5 years when I couldn't figure out what to do with myself while I was going to school, and it was helping pay the bills. Which again, I didn't think was something that would ever sort of come back into play in the rest of my life, and it really has. I briefly went back to school and took honors computer science for about a minute. And when I got there, I realized this is not going to keep me going for the rest of my life. And it was super embarrassing because one, I had told everybody that I was going back to school and I was going into honors computer science, and I thought I'd figured it all out again. And, taking out a big student loan to do so. And it didn't work out that way. So I quit after about 6 weeks. And then again, I'm not really sure what's gonna happen here. And I knew of a couple of people who'd gone through a program at Red River called Creative Communications. And they came out and they were writing for a living, or they were working in radio, or they were working in television. And it sounded interesting to me. So I hadn't even heard of the program and applied on a whim and got in and took a 2-year program that is mainly focused, at the time was mainly focused on journalism, advertising, and public relations. And I majored in public relations. And when I graduated, I promptly went and worked in advertising for 5 years. So I worked for an advertising agency. It was probably one of the most fun jobs I've ever had because we were all young and didn't know what we couldn't do. And we won a bunch of awards and had great clients. And it was really, really fun. And the best part about it was the people that I worked with, but it was also in being able to learn constantly because we were all quite young. We didn't know what we couldn't do. So we tried a lot of things. And so I got some great skills by doing that. And then I wanted to make some more money. So I went and worked for the Fairmont as their in-house PR person. I also wanted to go back to PR. So I went and worked for the Fairmont as their in-house PR person for about 4 years. Got some really great skills there because it was a national company, a hotel company, got to travel to some cool places and stay in some nice hotels. Had a couple of kids while I worked there, and then decided that I would try being the director of marketing for a financial services company. And no disrespect to Ryan or anyone else who works in financial services, but it was just not my thing. It was very compliance heavy, and when you're a writer and creative, I found that it didn't give me enough. So the Forks job, I've now been here. This is how good this place is. I've been here 18 years. This is my 18th year at the Forks and Reported Partnership. And I started 4 days a week when my kids were little, which gave me some flexibility and some time with them. And I didn't think I'd be here 18 years. I thought I'd be here 3 or 4 years. I thought, I'm going to move on to something else because I'll get restless or I won't have enough challenges. And I've really been able to kind of carve my own way and create a job that I absolutely adore. My title is VP of Strategic Initiatives, but when people ask me what I do, I just say that I'm the VP of stuff because I don't really have a firm job description. It's kind of, I sometimes put up my hand and say I want to try something, and all of a sudden that's something I'm working on. So some of the coolest things that I've done, I applied for and got as our Guinness World Record for the longest naturally frozen skating trail in the world, which is a category that I made up. So if you're ever looking for a Guinness World Record, you can make up your own categories. You just have to be willing to pay $6,000 to get your actual certificate. But what that did was it actually turned winter on. For a lot of people, we got this rivalry with Ottawa going, and people wanted to know we were longer and they were wider. And it did great things. And then we got to work on things like warming huts, and we added wind socks this year. And I got to go and meet the artist Ai Weiwei a couple of years ago. So Forever Bicycles is here for 3 years as a temporary art loan. That's not something I could have ever learned in school. It's just something that I thought, oh, it would be really cool. We had a funder who was interested in doing something like that. And I got a chance to go and meet this international artist who'd been thrown out of his own country, and talk to him about what Winnipeg was like, and why we were important, and the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. So every day, my days are incredibly different. So today we are doing consultations on what Canada Day could or should look like this year, given the recovery of unmarked graves just before Canada Day last year. What does that mean on our site? How do we bring back events in a post-pandemic world? The last 2 years have been rough. A lot of where we get our dollars is from things like parking and revenues at the bar and our tenants, and that just wasn't there. So it's really nice to be able to just sort of emerge now. But so my days are incredibly varied, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I can't imagine doing any other job than this. But my advice for you would always be curious. Be curious, continue learning, volunteer where you can, and learn from those volunteer experiences. I volunteered in like a lot of different places over the years as parts of my career. But I think the thing that keeps me going is that I'm just naturally curious, and I want to know more about things. And so I will ask questions and put up my hand and volunteer to try things that end up sometimes being really interesting. Some of them fail, which is hard sometimes, but things like the common and our licensing structure that goes along with the common, and maintaining it as a public space first and foremost, like living those values. I think Ryan hit it right on the head. Like, I work for a place where my values align with the organization, and I'm really proud of the stuff that we get to do here. So I think that's probably my 5 minutes. I can keep talking forever, but I'm sure, I hope there's some questions.
Yeah, lots of questions.
Cool.
What's the best part about your job, and how many hours, days do you work right now?
The best part of my job is probably all the things that I can't even possibly imagine are coming my way. Every day there'll be something that's like, I could not have anticipated that. And that's my new favorite part. I still really like, so my training is in communications. I really like being on camera. Like, I like being interviewed. I find it really comfortable and easy. And during the pandemic, when we had to lay everybody off, I got a chance to do it again. So I'm responsible for marketing and communications programming. So things like Canada Day and New Year's Eve. Sponsorship, grants, there's other parts of this too, events, and then also, those are the parts, and then operational things as well. So as I said, every day is completely different. And what was the second part of the question?
How many hours, days do you work in a week?
Well, I would say, like, I leave at a reasonable time, but because we're a 24-hour site and we're a 365-day-a-year site, I don't know if I ever 100% leave it. And that's something I'm working on. I'm working on really hard is actually disconnecting and not being the person who thinks about, whether or not the river level is coming up today or not, that there are other people that can do that. It was hard during the pandemic to do that because there were so few of us. But now we are starting to staff back up again. And so there are other people who can worry about those things. But it kind of rolls into my life. That's just the way it has, but I don't think it stops me from being present in the rest of my life.
Excellent. What is your leadership style? What are some of the biggest challenges you faced as vice president?
My leadership style is pretty much, you can see it all over my face. We just went through a training program that is absolutely amazing called DISC, which tells you what kind of manager you are and what kind of personality you are. I'm an I, which means that I'm a massive extrovert. I love new ideas. I love innovation. I kind of bring everybody along with me based on my enthusiasm alone sometimes, because the idea may not be that great. And my style is to always encourage people to do their best and to remain curious and to challenge and to enjoy what you do in your life.
Okay. I might not be pronouncing your name correctly. Christy Botcher says, "Hi Claire, we used to connect over email back when I worked at Chow magazine and I'd write about events at the Forks. How has your role grown over the years?"
It's grown and changed. It's sort of grown bigger at points, and then we're a really unusual organization in that we're not incredibly bureaucratic. We're fairly flat in terms of our management structure. So at one point I was responsible for all of the operations as well. So all of site maintenance and frontline staff and parking staff. It wasn't a good fit as part of my portfolio, so it was removed from it. But that's the great part about being in a place like this, is that you can add and take some of those things away. The toughest part of my job, honestly, has been in the last 2 years, having to let go 65% of our staff within a month of the pandemic in order to remain financially viable and still here, was incredibly difficult. I love people, and we're a pretty tight group here, and that was really, really hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. Last two questions. What is the secret or unknown cool thing about the Forks I should know about? And what's your favorite place to eat at the Forks?
Ooh. Well, my favorite place to eat has changed over time, because I'm sad to say that I am completely immune to tall grass cinnamon buns after 18 years. I can walk past them now. I can smell the cinnamon and not immediately start to salivate. It changes over time. Depends on how I feel. If it's a sushi kind of day, we have great fast food restaurants. We have great sit down restaurants. It changes often. It depends. Okay. What was the other part of the question?
What's the sort of unknown secret place thing about the Forks that maybe people don't know about and should?
Ooh. Well, and this is part of, it's kind of my pet project at the moment, is that we have so much art. If you've ever had a chance to travel to other cities and you are, looking at art galleries, or you are, in public spaces and you see amazing art, we are really, really lucky to have an Ai Weiwei. We have a Flanagan, which is from an artist from England on loan to us as well. But we also have amazing commission pieces. Nimama, which was created by 3 Indigenous artists together. Each of those artists now has a piece on our site as well. My favorite new spot on the site, because that changes too, is in Nisho Sibin, which was renamed from South Point a few years ago. It's called the Gathering Space, and it has a traditional wigwam structure. And according to the builder, it's the first time one has been raised in the city limits in probably 100 years. It's magic. So I like the quieter spots. I do also love, on New Year's Eve, watching 30,000 people roll in here.
That's great. Awesome. We're out of time. Thanks so much, Claire. We really appreciate it. That was terrific. We're going to welcome in now Nicolas Joubert, who is a lawyer at Aikins. And Nick, you are on.
Excellent. Thanks, Greg. Hi, everyone. So it's been really interesting to hear everybody else speak, and I think I share a lot of the points that others have shared with you in terms of advice, but I'll give you a bit of background about myself, how I got to where I am today, and then maybe just share one piece of advice that I have that I got when I was in your position in high school, and I think probably captures everybody else's thoughts kind of nicely. So as Greg mentioned, I'm a lawyer at MLT Aikins in Winnipeg. I practice corporate commercial law and intellectual property law. So basically what I do is I help people sell businesses, buy businesses, merge with other companies, maintain their companies, draft contracts, that kind of thing. So that's the corporate side of things. And on the intellectual property and technology side, I deal a lot with software development type things, software agreements, trademarks, buying and selling intellectual property. Recently helped a client sell a video game that they had developed. So a lot of technology-based corporate work. So how I got here, I sort of knew in high school that I was always interested in business and sort of law, but I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do. Maybe law school, maybe career in some type of business or management or something like that, but just kind of kept an open mind, and did a 4-year business undergrad at the University of Winnipeg and started looking at what my options were after that. So I applied at different business schools to do a master's in business administration, and then figured, you know what, might as well try law at the same time. And the more I sort of looked into going into law, the more I was interested in the opportunities that existed in the career of law itself, and not necessarily strictly from a sort of traditional, you go to law school and then you graduate, you work at a law firm, or you go to court, you argue, and if you practice litigation, but the options that you have to take what you learn in law school, the skills that you develop, and go and do a whole bunch of other stuff, become a politician, go work for not-for-profits, continue on and work in business, do marketing. Clare mentioned that one of the parts that she didn't like about working at a financial institution was being constricted by the compliance piece. But that's one of the things that excites me as a lawyer, is dealing with those compliance pieces. So I decided to go into law school, and I did my law school at the University of Ottawa. Spent 5 years in Ottawa, and loved every minute of it. And an opportunity came up to come back home to Winnipeg to practice law, and so I took it. So I've been practicing for about 5 years, and love every minute of it. There's certainly some challenges, but it's extremely rewarding to help people grow their business, see the natural evolution in their business, and help them achieve their goals, whatever those goals may be, from simple transactions or helping somebody draft a simple contract to multi-million and sometimes multi-billion-dollar deals that you're part of a team of lawyers and other advisors that helps the client get to that finish line, whatever that finish line looks like. So that's me in a nutshell. I'll leave a good chunk of time for questions, because there've been some really good questions, so I'm looking forward to getting roasted on some of these questions.
Yeah, we've got a few. How expensive is it to go to law school?
Yeah, so it's not cheap. There's no way of getting around that. So it ranges depending on the law schools in Canada, and I'm a firm believer in this, and don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Every single one of our law schools in Canada are fantastic law schools, whether it's in British Columbia or in the East Coast and everywhere in between. So it ranges from anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 a year. Usually a law degree is 3 years, so you can imagine that that's a good chunk of change. My advice to you is to seek out opportunities to get scholarships, to get grants, to get support from friends and family. I took out a student loan and was able to leverage some sort of favorable products that most financial institutions have in terms of giving you money that that you don't have to pay interest on for a few years after you graduate. So, you know, I always encourage you that if cost is a concern, there's almost always a way of finding help and support, and don't let that be the reason why you don't at least explore that option to pursue a career in law.
Okay. What's your approach or philosophy to winning or representing a case?
So I luckily don't, I say luckily because I don't do litigation. And I tried it a little bit in law school. I had an internship at the Department of Justice in Ottawa, in a more sort of litigation-based role, and frankly hated every minute of it. But that doesn't mean that I don't represent clients and I don't get into, you know, I'll say arguments or positions where we have to represent the interests of our clients, which may be adverse to the other parties that we're dealing with. And frankly, my approach is always to be practical, to be reasonable, and to be collegial. So in my role, I often don't deal with lawyers in our city. I often deal with lawyers in the big centers like Vancouver and Toronto, and recently in Europe and in the United States. And so you get to see a lot of different styles and a lot of different ways of people operating. But the transactions and the deals that you have the most fun with are frankly the ones where your colleagues are respectful and collegial and you work through the issues together, as opposed to being adversarial and difficult to work with.
Okay. How long did it take you to decide on a career, and was it the first career you thought you would do?
So like I mentioned, I've always had an interest in maybe pursuing an option or a career in law. So I don't know if I could say that it took a certain amount of time, but I've always just been open to the possibility of that. And the sort of tip that I would share with you all is to just keep exploring what you think is interesting and what you have fun doing. And if that leads you to a career, then so be it. Just have an open mind to follow that path wherever it takes you. You know, part of the reason why other shoulder, you know, two of my interests outside of law is, this is weird, it's mirroring. So aviation and I referee soccer professionally. And those are two paths that I've just let myself over the years follow to development to the point where I'm now a professional soccer referee and looking at getting my private pilot's license with my brother who's a pilot. And it was the same thing with law. It was just a matter of, I enjoy doing this. I want to keep exploring where it can take me and kind of just go with the flow.
Okay. What skills are needed for law school?
So I wouldn't say that there's a particular set of skills, and I'm sounding like Liam Neeson now from Taken for those of you that, but I think again it's about having an open mind. So you don't need a particular undergraduate degree in anything. I think there's actually just the minimum requirement is 2 years of university, but most people do at least a 3-year degree. But the purpose of law school is to teach you how to think differently. And that's probably the most important skill that you'll take with you as you graduate law school and go into a career in law. It's just a different way of thinking about problems and problem solving. And so, sure, there's lots of different things. Like I did a business undergrad, and that was super helpful in terms of transitioning to a career in corporate law. But I had classmates in law school that were nurses. I had a guy who was an RCMP officer for 30 years and decided to change careers. Science, engineering, you name it. So there isn't a particular set of skills or educational experience you need, but just the willingness to learn and to work very hard will get you to where you need to be.
Perfect. What video game did you help get developed and released, and how has it done since its release?
So I'm not in a position to be able to share the name of the video game, unfortunately. But it did very well, considering this fellow basically developed it off an old laptop that he got while living with his parents in high school. Actually, he graduated high school last year in June and sold it for high 6 figures to an American company. So not a bad payday for a high school student.
Nice. What classes did you take in high school to become a lawyer? And then someone else is asking, what English courses do you need to take in high school or college?
So no, there's no requirements for specific classes in high school. I went to a high school where they offered a sort of law course, which was like a very, very basic introduction to what is Canadian law, how is law made in Canada, etc., which was helpful, but I wouldn't say it's certainly not required. In university, again, there's no set required courses. You just need a certain number of credit hours, and I think it's 120 credit hours, which roughly means 2 years. But again, the bulk of law school applicants will have had at least a 3-year undergraduate degree. But again, it can be an undergrad degree in whatever fancies your particular interests. So it could be history, it could be arts, it could be engineering. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Last 2-part question. Best thing about your job, worst thing about your job?
Okay. Best part about my job, truly, and it's sort of combined with the worst part, believe it or not. So the worst part is that there's no doubt that lawyers work very hard and sometimes long hours and sometimes under very stressful conditions. But the best part about that is that you learn so much about yourself and how to manage those situations and how to achieve balance in your life. And the moments when all that comes together in sort of this perfect harmony where you're working under a lot of time pressures or client demands towards a deadline, and then everything comes together, the deal closes, the client's extremely happy, they've just sold a business that they've created 30 years ago. Sometimes multiple generations have gone into this business and they've now sold it and achieved the success that they've been dreaming of. And to know that you've been part of that whole process is really rewarding.
Awesome. Kate, we're out of time. Thanks so much for that, Nick. That was fantastic. Thanks for all of your answers.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, everybody, that brings us to the end of our first World of Choices session. Thanks to our fantastic speakers and of course our presenting sponsor, RBC Foundation and CNA for their support. I hope you all enjoyed listening to our speakers and learned something today. Please remember, teachers, to fill out their surveys, please. And a reminder that our next sessions are on April 13th and May 3rd. If you haven't already registered, please do so. Thanks, everybody, and take care. Have a good afternoon.